Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, is my audio all right? I'm on my phone.
Yeah, it is. It's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, fine.
great. I think I'm gonna have to spring for a new laptop here.
Has it reached that time?
Yeah, or figure out if there's something I can do for the existing one, but
Yeah,
it happens eventually.
Yeah, I mean, how long you had that one for?
Oh, quite a while.
Yeah.
I think it's like 2016. So.
Oh, when you said long ago, so because I was going to tell you my story about Mac Mini. So I've had a Mac Mini since 2010, and it's really one that just sits in the cupboard doing, sort of background workflows and all the stuff we talked about the other day. And while we were in South Africa, it stopped working. And normally it just needs someone to just reboot it. So I asked Catherine to reboot it, and it just never came up. And I got back home, and it's taking me a while to look at it and whatever. And I've tried all the things, and it turns on, and you can hear the fan going, and you think, okay, well, maybe it's working. But you plug something in, like a screen, and it doesn't show up. So I finally took it to there's a local guy here that fixes computers, and he said, yeah, no, your motherboard's completely gone. Well, that's not bad. I mean, I paid probably 4,000 rand, so probably £200 for it, brand new back when I bought it. It's lasted 12 years. 12 and a half years. It's pretty good return.
Yeah.
But I was running, when I left Lakeside and I went on my own, I was using my wife's M1 MacBook Air, and I just found that it just didn't cope. Like with all the stuff that I was doing, Excel spreadsheets and Teams calls, because Teams memory usage is obviously so bad. It was so bad. They've improved that a lot. I was running out of disk space pretty much all the time, out of memory all the time. So I took the plunge and I bought a Pro. Which one did I buy? I can't remember. It's an M2 and M1, but M2 Pro. And I hardly notice anything. Never worry about anything. Just all my worries went away.
Yeah, I might have to go the pro route. Because I have an Air right now, which is probably part of the problem. But it's like an ancient Air at this point.
Well, look, it's, and I was having this conversation with a guy at the gym today. We were just, because because I always, not always, but I have my iPad mini with me sometimes when I'm training, because I'm watching something or I'm listening to something, and that's the device that I typically, if I'm watching something, that's the one I carry around with me. And he was asking me, why do you carry your little iPad mini around with you? And I said, well, I can use my phone. My phone's got my gym program on it. So I don't like to have like the little window on top of my gym program, or my phone's be my gym program, and if I'm watching something, like I've just finished watching DS9 again, I like to have them separated. And we sort of got to because he was like, yeah, but no one uses iPads besides watching TV. I said, well, actually, I use my iPad for everything. I take notes on it, I take pictures, I sign contracts, if I've got ideas to draw out, I draw them out on there. I sit there in the sauna sometimes drawing stuff out. And he said, well, you're probably the one person. And I thought, well, maybe I am for now. But as the stuff gets better and better, I think more people will do it. And he sort of said, maybe. And then ironically, we were sitting in the sauna, and another guy walked in with his iPad mini and started drawing things out. And I said, see, it's already stopped.
Yeah, I feel like iPads are definitely more than just screens for watching TV. That's what I think of when I see I feel like they've become one of those devices that's great for kids when traveling, and you see the kids with the special holders where they can watch their cartoons before the flight, that kind of thing.
Well, I actually think the iPad is not the right tool for a child. Probably, number one is it's a very expensive item. I think the Amazon Fire tablets, and someone else recommended them to us, and we've had them with our kids now for 6 months. Now, if you think about an entry level iPad, let's say it's roughly, I don't know, £300, £400, whatever that dollars, probably the same, very similar. I think we paid £50 on a special for them each, and they're pretty hardy. My son did break the screen while we were in Eisner. Now, the challenge there we had is that they don't have the same version out in South Africa. It's a little bit behind. But they also said to me they won't replace the screen. It's not worth the money. So it's a very cheap device. And even when I came back to the UK and I brought the device back with me and I said, look, can you fix the thing? They said, no, it's not worth it. The screen will cost you £50. The label will cost you £30. And you can buy a new one for £80. So why would you? So that's probably not a good thing. I think that, the recyclability isn't right. I mean, I think it needs to be something you could repair easily and cheaply and that sort of thing. But what's impressive with them is they've got a very good way to manage the content that the kids can see. And it's very simple. Like, you can drag the bar as a parent and say, my child is 4 years old. Here's their birthday. And they'll limit the content based on age restriction, which I think is great. Where it's a bit of a pain is like, especially when you take in the kids around. I mean, these things don't have built-in 3G cards or 4G cards or whatever. So wherever you go and you want to put them on the Wi-Fi, you always have to log in as the parent to put them on the Wi-Fi. And there's a couple little things where it's, the user experience is not great, which obviously on the Apple devices is a bit better. But what I find with the Apple experience is you end up quite often with a kid playing a game. And my son's got this game he loves. It's like a dinosaur digger game. And it always wants him to buy more levels and to buy other apps. And of course, he doesn't understand that when he sees the picture and he clicks on the picture, that is taking him to another app. And it's a cost.
Yeah.
And when I say, no, you can't have that, then he gets upset because in his mind, and he's so used to, especially on the Amazon devices, where any app he plays with on the Amazon device, it's already included. I pay like a small fee. I think it's like, £19 a year or something for the kids subscription. And, he just gets the games and he plays the games. And there's a lot of good stuff on there. My daughter, who's 2.5, she's already practicing to write letters and write numbers. She literally, I think I told you the story. She actually walked up to a chalkboard while we were at one of the places and she took the chalk and she drew a letter because she'd been practicing the pattern. She has no idea what the letter means. It's from memory, but that sort of thing is amazing. So I think from that point of view, I think they're a necessary evil. And our kids don't live on them. They maybe get, half an hour a day, maybe an hour at the most. But it's, they don't even look at them every day anymore. Initially it was like that, and then they kind of like very rarely will look at their screens, which is good and bad. But I think it's something that's pervasive. I think you will see more and more of them as the quality gets better at the lower levels. If you know what I mean.
Have you heard the expression iPad kids?
Oh, I've seen iPad kids. My mother loves to remind me of this because when my son was born, I said he'll not have an iPad till he's 12. Because at the time, friends of ours, their kids basically were glued to their iPads. They would basically have their iPads, and you can't, also on camera, but they'd have the iPads in front of their face for like 8 hours a day. Like, we go out for lunch, and the kid could not walk or do anything without the iPad in front of them. And and if you took the iPad away, you were in for the biggest tantrum you've ever seen. So yeah, that's what I've seen as iPad kids, and it definitely put me off. I'm very glad that my kids are pretty at this stage. I mean, things can always change. They manage their own time pretty well already, in the sense that they'll do it for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and they'll move on to go and build Lego or build train tracks or something like that.
Yeah, I feel fortunate to have grown up, when there was less digital, easy access stuff, pre-iPhone, pre-tablet. So I think they're, conscientious around it now and sort of controlling screen time and whatnot. But there's more temptation out there, I guess, for kids growing up to just get, glued to technology really young.
I'm a hypocrite because I spend my whole life looking at screens. I'm doing the call with you today on my iPad because I've come to the conclusion that doing calls on my iPad is easier than trying to find the window for my Teams calls on my desktop because I've got 3 screens. And then even if I'm taking a break, I'm reading my book on my iPad. So I'm looking at screens pretty much all day long, unless I'm going for a walk, and then I look at the scenery. But if I look at it from an ADHD point of view, it's been a lifesaver having everything synchronized across my devices in the same place, organized, because that's one of the things you struggle with when you have ADHD is you can very easily get lost in all the things you're doing. So you got to use the technology for the right reasons. And in the same token, living in a house full of other people, if you want to watch something on TV and all the TVs are busy, you having an iPad is useful to have.
Totally.
So
yeah, it's technology. What can you do? Can't live with it. Can't live without it.
Well, you can only embrace it. And I'm looking at I'm sure you've seen this on your LinkedIn as well. I mean, the amount of AI stuff that's coming out and
yeah,
stuff. I mean, I almost posted the other day that I'm actually like so overwhelmed, and I know what's going on if I compare myself to the average person. My wife was asking me yesterday, like, can you show me how to use ChatGPT? And I was thinking, like, how do I even? And she wanted to do something specific. And I said, I don't even think that's the right tool for the job anymore. I think there's so many services now, you don't even know which one is the right one to use.
Yeah.
And this is this was always going to be the problem. You still have to understand a bit of how it all works to understand what you're getting out of it, and you need to be a critical thinker, I think, to what you get out. I mean, yes, ChatGPT is useful. It's very useful to get you going on something, but you can't trust it completely. I mean, we've got content that we're going through at the moment, fact checking and getting real stuff out of, because some of the stuff it's quoted has been terrible. But it's much easier to edit something than start from scratch, and that's the gain or the upside.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I feel like every multiple posts a day, look at this new, tool that's leveraging OpenAI's technology to do this task for these people, right? There's a million of those coming out right now. And it is overwhelming. And it does feel, to me, it's, I'm still trying to figure out what's the level of knowledge to obtain right now, because it's a job skill. When does it become not just a curiosity, where people who are really into AI are, learning how to be great prompt engineers and exploring with ways to use the backend technology to create, new and different tools and user experiences. But when does it become like integrated just into the workplace? Like, is it when Microsoft Copilot goes live? That feels like inevitable to me. If everyone has access to the tools at work, that's when it gets mass adopted. But yeah, is there something in between there where it's sort of a skill that everyone needs to learn?
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting observation, because I actually posted something on this today. So I'm reading a very good series of books by a guy named Mike Grist, and he's got AIs. AI has been a theme in a lot of the story in various forms, and one of the and this is kind of the thing I think that lines nicely what you're saying. So you have what everyone's kind of expecting is AI, is the Skynet, Data in Star Trek, Hell in Space Odyssey, those sorts of movies where you're talking to something and it's talking back to you. So your ChatGPT experience right now, where it can talk to you now with a voice, and it can talk to you by text, and you're having interaction. And I was doing something the other night, and I was literally, in fact, I was showing my wife how to use it, and I said, look, you can do it this way, and I wrote, we had like an interaction to do the thing. I said, or you can just do it my way, using my prompt generator, which puts it all together, and I write what I want, and then I just click on all the things that I needed to structure it and all that stuff. And those are two different approaches to the same mechanism, in what you're doing. And I think that'll become the first option, where people are interacting with something and it's responding, is what most people will get used to, or most people will deal with. You then have, and then you have the more sophisticated people that'll use the prompt and do that kind of stuff. Then I think you'll have the other scenario, which is what you mentioned, which is the more integrated feeling. So, like if you can imagine, and I'm one of these people very guilty of this, is there's those emails where you write the nasty response, the sharp, the blunt, the whatever, which I must say I work quite hard not doing, but I still do it sometimes. And while you're writing the nasty prompt, you could have your AI fixing that language as you're writing. So an example of this already to an extent is Grammarly. While you're writing some text, you can tell it to say, I want this to be professional, I want this to be jovial, I want this to be neutral, whatever it is. And that's already kind of giving you, you can manually fine tune your stuff. But you could, in theory, in the Microsoft world, let's say they're going to use Copilot to do this, you could say, set some rules for yourself with the AI to say, if I start going down the route of being nasty, spiteful, disrespectful, obnoxious, whatever, fish-based, stop me, rewrite the text to be friendly, collaborative, etc. Or maybe in extreme cases, stop the email from going out or pause it for a day and then check with me the next day if I still want to send that nasty, snotty, ranting email, as an example. Those two scenarios are probably the main ones. And then I think you'll get the third one, which I think I saw this on a YouTube episode yesterday, where while you are having a meeting, for example, and you're discussing the actions, like I'm doing some copywriting, trademarking stuff at the moment, while I'm saying to my guy, look, I need you to, we need to research this, do this, do this, do this, the AI is picking up on those actions and it's doing the research for you. So the sort of auto GTP theme that's coming out, where we're saying go and research the name, go research the concept, go check the various territories for IP. It can go and do that stuff, and it can almost self-direct itself based on that action. So that need to go and take the action, go do the work, and then come back with the response can be short-circuited completely, that by the time you finish the meeting, you might already have the answer. Or while you're having the meeting, the answers are bubbling up in your screen because the AI is listening and doing the I want to say easy work, but the grunt work for you.
That would be super interesting. I know the demos that they've shown of the conceptions of Copilot so far are definitely on like the meeting transcription and taking notes of the action items, but having like a AI in the room with you during a call to move things along would be incredibly interesting.
Yeah. And I mean that was my hope when I use Otto AI, is that it'll pick out the actions and it'll summarize the stuff. And that's not, it hasn't been very good. It's useful if I miss a meeting, or it's useful if I need to go back and refer to the meeting, and then I can go look at the transcripts and read them as opposed to pick them out. I mean, it's Otto in this, to what I've seen so far, still requires you to go and pick out the interesting stuff. But I'm sure there's other services that can do a better job. And I think there's a level of personal AIs as well. And there was another series of books that I was reading, which goes down more this route, where you almost have your dedicated AI. And I look at it with my wife and I, with the kids here, and even in South Africa, you get so much information sent to you from the schools, like activities for the week and events coming up and all that kind of stuff. And it's overwhelming because you've already, from a work point of view, getting sent a lot of stuff. Now you've got the school sending you a lot of stuff, so emails and WhatsApp groups and all that. And if you had your personal AI that was just digesting that information and pulling out the important stuff, putting it into your calendar, for example, like just the concept, just that little bit of, there's like tomorrow the kids are going to be doing a singing thing for the coronation. If my wife saw it or I saw, we have to go and spend 2 minutes putting it into the calendar, but it also breaks our concentration because now you're going to do that 2-minute thing. If that could just naturally be digested by the AI and put into your calendar, that would be great. I've got a whole bunch of emails here, but we're doing some other stuff, and just digesting a whole bunch of email trails into a single summary that says, okay, out of all these 15 emails, this is the important concept. This is what's been discussed as possible routes, and this is what you need to do. I think that would be awesome as a solution.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's both a way to generate a ton of content. So there's potential for content explosion with tools like this, but then also the assistance to digest the content that's already there and provide that next layer of seamless. I mean, there's already a little bit of this, right? Like if you start adding an event, I think in Apple or Google Calendar, if it's kind of seen an invite come through your mailing service, it can sort of, oh, do you mean this? But it's sort of the next step on top of that to just pull it without you even asking. Yeah.
But that's still a bit generalized. And that's my experience with that hasn't been fantastic. And that's not really an AI problem all the time. But for example, like I had a car service the other day. I got the confirmation email, so I still had to go click on create the event. It didn't copy any of the information across, so I was still manually copying all the information across. That wasn't a great experience, and that's never been improved by Apple. I mean, that's been an issue for ages. When it says create the event, it should be able to take the information out. And Fantastical is a much better tool when I was using it, where you literally could just copy and paste the text, and it would go and create the entry on the day with the information, and that worked quite well. But there's not a consumption of the information in context of what's important to you, and I think that's where the AI would be interesting to me. So, there's a lot of stuff that comes in, as I say, from the school that's got nothing to do with us. It's different years, or it's different commitments. Like my son goes to certain activities, and it's the other activities. So we need that noise filtered out. And I think that's where, and we've talked about this before, that ability to get something, and this is where ChatGPT is great. In some respects, you could go and give it a paragraph of stuff and say, explain this to me in layman's term in bullets, like I'm a 5-year-old, and it'll do that for you. And that's fantastic. Now, if that could just be a little bit more intuitive in your workflow, that would be that I think is the next step. And I think that's where, if you look at like Apple with their shortcuts, I would see Apple probably launching something fairly soon that'll tie in there where you can create a shortcut to do some stuff with an AI backend.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I'm sure it's coming. But yeah, we'll just see where this stuff goes. Exciting developments all around. I do need to run. Any parting thoughts?
I would think if you're not already playing with some of the AI stuff, you should be. And I mean, not just you, Heather, but anyone else.
Yeah,
and
generally.
If you don't know where to start, I think you need to find someone. And if you don't know anybody, you can always come to me, because this is going to be a very quick moving learning curve. And I think that it'll blow a lot of people, not necessarily out of the workforce. I think they'll still be the workforce, but I mean, I think the ability to leverage these tools is the multiplier for a lot of. I mean, I see it every day. And I think that's going to be the difference between being very successful and not. Yeah.
Well said. I think it's coming. So doing a little bit of skill prep is a smart move.
Yep. The best return in the world is skilling yourself up.
All right. Well, great chatting as always. And I'll see you next time.
Super. Thanks, Heather. Keep well.
Okay.
Cheers, everyone.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter at the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.